Hi, my name's Nick Kelly and welcome to my course. This lesson is based upon a chord progression that is non-diatonic. Now, non-diatonic basically means that the chords don't belong to one key. They kind of change key. So the best approach to soloing in this situation is to switch scales or switch arpeggios with the chords. So the particular chord progression in this song comprises of an A chord to an E chord with a G sharp in the bass, to a G chord, to a D chord with an F sharp in the bass, to an F chord, to an E minor 7, back to an A. Okay, so that chord progression moves around a fair bit. So my approach to soloing over this is to play the arpeggio for each chord. Now, bearing in mind the chords change every 2 beats, this is quite a lot to take into account if you're just a kind of basic blues or rock player. So this is something that would be a great introduction into chord changes for you, as well as a great introduction to arpeggios. Now, arpeggios essentially are the notes of the chord played individually. That's exactly what they are. So if we take a chord such as A major, for example, the arpeggio of A major is the notes of A, C sharp, and E. Okay, we can then play those in the next octave and the next octave. Now, there are several different positions on the fingerboard to play those particular arpeggios. So we could play them in the E shape, which corresponds to the E shape bar chord, in the D shape, which corresponds to the D shape barred version of A, the C shape, the A shape, and the G shape. So we have those notes available to us over the whole neck. Now, another thing that I like to do is to add in the ninth into the arpeggio. Now, by ninth, a ninth is the same as a second. Basically, if you play a scale, a major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is the octave. 9 is the extension, the second in the next octave. Okay, so I like to add in that second or ninth, if you will, into the arpeggio, into the major arpeggio. So A, C sharp, E becomes A, B, C sharp, E. It has a really melodic sound. Okay, so it's kind of a cool sound. Now, another one that I sometimes throw in, but you got to be a little careful with this because sometimes it doesn't fit in depending on what key you're in, is to add in the fourth, which would be in the case of an A arpeggio. If you think of an A major scale, A being the 1, B being the 2, C sharp, D. D is the 4th. So you would end up with A, C sharp, D, E. So, very cool sound. Again, very melodic. Sometimes you could add in the 9th and the 4th, which would be A, B, C sharp, D, E. Very melodic. Essentially, it's a major scale without the 6th or the 7th in it, but it has a much more kind of melodic, lyrical sound. Now, that's just the first chord of A. Of course, we then change to E over G sharp. Now, E over G sharp is essentially an E chord with a G sharp bass note. Okay, so I just think of it as a G sharp bass note is the third in the bass. So I'm going to play an E, just an E major arpeggio, or an E add 9, or an E sus4. Okay, now don't forget, that's within the space of one bar. We have A, E. So 1, 2, A, 2, E, 4. So we have to be able to change A, E, oops, and so on and so forth. So basically, what I would recommend doing is just taking 2-bar loops at first, maybe the first bar, A to E, just looping that over a backing track, getting used to linking the arpeggios together seamlessly. So, for example, instead of always jumping to the lowest note of the arpeggio, you know, let's say, for example, in an A arpeggio, instead of always jumping down to the A, and then the E, jumping down to the E, what you want to try and do is find common tones or tones that are very close to where you ended up. So let's say, for example, we went up an A arpeggio and we ended up on an A note. So 1 and 2 and that's the first half of the first measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. So okay. Then the chord changes to E. Now, instead of going all the way down to an E at that point, we can find the closest note to the A, which is where we left off, in the next arpeggio. So the closest note to A within an E arpeggio is G sharp. So we could go up the A, change to the E arpeggio, and then we continue that through the chord changes. So let's say we ended up on a B, we could either stay on the B or go up a G arpeggio from the G note, which is close to the B, and then we end up on a G on the G arpeggio, and then go to the F sharp in the D arpeggio, because G and F sharp are real close. So we would get this: A, so on. A, back to the start. E, G, D, F, E minor, A. Okay, so that's the basic idea behind linking the arpeggios together. Okay, so now I want to talk about ways to play the arpeggios which are less predictable than just going up and down the arpeggio. So the first one we could do is we can skip each note, each second note in the arpeggio. So instead of going from A to C sharp, I go from A to E. So I'm skipping an arpeggio. Then I go to the next note in the arpeggio, which is C sharp. And instead of going to E from there, go to A. So, and we continue this. We could do this as an exercise through the chord changes. So A, and so on and so forth. So set ourselves those kind of exercises to practice to see if we can actually apply that concept through all the arpeggios. So that's one way. We could also do numerical sequencing, which would be threes, for example. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So and so on and so forth through the chord changes. 4s, 5s. however imaginative you want to be. The other thing is linking chromatically. So, for example, let's say you got a target note in an arpeggio. Let's say the target note is A. We could, I could lead down to it, and then we could link basically any note within the arpeggio. So I'm going down here chromatically to the A note, or we could go chromatically up to the third, and so on and so forth. So experiment with those ideas also. One other thing that I want to talk about is being able to sweep pick these arpeggios is a pretty fun thing to do also. Some of these fingerings aren't necessarily designed, like this one for example, for effective sweep picking. So sometimes I have to relocate certain notes onto the same string higher up. So there's a few positions that I want to show you. So here's the first one. This is an E shape in the A major. There's 5th fret on the low E, then 9, then 7 on the A, 7 on the D, 6 on the G, 5 on the B, 5 on the E, then 9. And the picking pattern here is up, down, 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 up. And then coming back, down, up, 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 down. Okay, now there's one. Here's another one. This is a C shape. This is also A major. Okay, this one is 9th fret on the low E, then 12, then 12 on the A, then 11 on the D, 9 on the G, 10 on the B, 9 on the E, 12 on the A. Same picking pattern. Okay, so try these out, apply the concepts that we talked about, and I hope you enjoy learning the solo and that you can pick out some pretty cool ideas from in there. And I hope to see you all real soon. I've been Nick Kelly, and I'm signing off.